Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
In the military, veterans answer the call to serve. Now it's our turn. At Hire Heroes USA, they're changing lives, helping veterans and military spouses secure meaningful careers, all at no cost.
With over 100,000 success stories and counting nationwide, they're connecting skilled veterans with employers who recognize their true value. Visit hireheroesusa.org to access their services or to support their mission. What does an 18-year veteran of the tech industry and a 20-year veteran of the military have in common? More than you might think. Welcome, everyone, to the Second Act podcast, leveling up your life's journey.
You can't stop me. You don't got the power. Shut me down. That's not an option. I'm my biggest problem. You don't got the power. Shut me down. That's not an option. You can't stop me.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Second Act podcast with Michael and John. How are you doing, John? I know you got some cool things going on that hopefully you're willing to share today.
I'm doing well. I'm thrown off a little bit. Michael, you are so constant every episode. Behind the mic, black shirt, you're there, present, on the spot, and now I'm looking at you and I don't recognize you for some reason. And I realize it's a little bit of facial hair that you're the stubble. I love it. A little bit of change. So it's good, man. But I am so excited for this episode, but I'm happy because my kids are back in school. So that means I get a quiet office and a quiet house and quiet recording studio. But things have just been moving along in my life, professionally and personally, and my marriage. And so really we are enacting the 1% daily in our family. And it just is exciting. I'm pushing some stuff out on my kids and seeing them perform better and better every day. It's cool. They kind of had a light bulb moment over the weekend. And so I know that they're taking on some of the things that we talk about. So it's cool to see it so personal, So how about yourself?
Yeah, the kids are back in school, my one. And of course, he caught a little head cold the first week. So we've spent the weekend just fighting through that. But really great start to the year. He's excited to be back with his buddies. It's always a little bittersweet because, like you just said, we're trying to live out that 1% better every day.
Yeah.
As husbands, as fathers, as significant others, and just being present with those that mean the most of us. So we had just an amazing time together over the summer, but exciting things in the works. And I know you shared a very special announcement around an incredible organization. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
I'd love to. Yeah, over the weekend, I got brought onto the board of a local charity here called Arrow Angel. Arrow Angel's been around for a number of years now, but what they do is they find mostly children and mostly individuals that need to be transported delicately. I say that because they can't really be transported in with the general population on, commercial airlines. So Arrow Angel strives to find these kids and set them up with life-saving flights on corporate jets or private jets donated by individuals and corporations for them to get from one place to another for these life-saving emergencies. And the fact that I got brought onto the board is just extraordinary. Opportunity for me because that's something that my daughter could have used when she was born and before she passed away. But now I get to, try to find individuals and corporations who would like to donate these aircraft for these moments to help save these lives and give these kids the much needed opportunity that they have presented before them to get to a medical facility and get the operation or get the treatment and extend their lives. So just a great, exciting chance to continue to give back in the industry I'm currently in, which is aviation. So I'm really excited for that. Yeah, thanks for that plug.
Yeah, well, congratulations. That's really honorable group to be a part of, and
Yeah.
for what they're doing to help children who have medical conditions that make them more at risk in when it comes to commercial flying, and for the companies that are willing to share their jets and allow them to live a little bit more normal life than they maybe otherwise would have.
Yeah.
And we don't have a corporate jet, but we do our part to
That's right.
to pay it forward to folks who are loyal followers of us, audience members of us. And the way that we do that is anybody who goes to michaelandjohn.com and signs up for our giveaway program each week, we give away a little something in the way of an e-gift card. And we've got another winner.
Yes.
I'm not going to do names anymore, only because our lineup occasionally changes. So what we're doing is in our weekly email that we send out, we have the name of the individual, and we also post it on Instagram if you follow us.
Okay.
And then the winner obviously gets that e-gift card in their inbox. And
Very
again,
cool.
It's the same concept as if you were standing in line at the coffee shop or the grocery store, and you paid for the person behind you. Same concept, except this is like 21st century e-gift card version of that.
Yeah.
So congrats to our winner this week, and there will be another one in the following week.
And I'll say,
well.
Michael, I think something that just came up is, if somebody would like to donate something that we could also give away, that's a great possibility for us. If any of our listeners have products or, want to get the word out about their brand or what they're pursuing, or something that they can donate, then man, we'd love to pass that along as well. So
great idea.
Let us know.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I don't want to hold our guest up any longer, who has been sitting here patiently listening to us yabber for a bit. And with that said, I would like to introduce Chris Daly. Chris is an accomplished executive with over 30 years of experience in software development.
Wow.
Having held leadership roles in various companies, including Stratice Healthcare as Chief Technology Officer, and senior positions at Fortune 500 companies like Experian, Fidelity National, and Angie's List.
Wow.
Specializing in guiding teams through agile transformations, Chris is passionate about solving business challenges effectively using agile principles. In October of 2020, after experiencing subtle symptoms that led to the discovery of severe heart blockages, Chris underwent a heart transplant. This life-changing event has inspired him to share his story, encouraging others to seek medical help when needed and to prioritize their health. Now, Chris is dedicated to living with purpose and gratitude, focusing on a less stressful lifestyle and cherishing the second chance he's been given. Chris currently resides in Indiana with his amazing family, and we are excited to jump into this incredible story about someone who is literally lucky to be alive and living life's second act. Welcome, Chris.
Wow. Welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here.
That's quite the introduction. I think you're the first guest that we've ever had on with such a life-altering story.
Man.
So, man, I can't wait to hear about it.
It definitely was a surprise, and it has definitely impacted just about everything that I've done. So, it's one of those things where it's a bad thing, but it also is turning into a good thing.
Yeah.
So
I love that. We've had many guests where there's a paradigm shift caused by a life event.
Yep.
And I can't say any of them have maybe been quite as extreme as this one, but we're looking forward to you sharing your story. And usually we like to start with just how it all began, where you grew up, and some of the important things that helped shape your life as you headed off into the working world.
Sure. So I am a software guy, as Michael adequately described there. And, I've been around software development for 40 years. I'll make no bones about it. I don't hide the fact that my age, I don't hide that fact. And, through the years, I've gone and done a number of different things. I've done, I've been in startups. I've been in not-for-profits. I've been in, Fortune 500 companies. I've traveled the world. One year, I literally went around the world 4 times.
Wow.
It's one of those deals where you got a customer in Europe and you got another customer in Asia, and you just keep on flying, right? Um, and I've got an MBA. I got my bachelor's degree from Ball State here in Indiana. I've lived in Indiana except for a couple years in Florida. I've pretty much lived here in Indiana. And, that's kind of my background. In 2018, I got the opportunity to leave Angie's List when it got bought. And I took that opportunity and said, all right, I've screwed up. I've seen companies screwed up by, CEOs. I thought I could screw one up just as well as they could. So I started my own consulting firm. And, I did that through 2018 and 2019. We all know what happened in 2020, right?
Mhm.
COVID hit, among a number of other things, right? We had a presidential election, right, that led into a lot of chaos and what have you. And in August of that year, August 23rd, I was walking my dog and I felt a little tingle in my left hand. And, I've already described myself as an old guy, right? And we were raised, I don't know about you all, but we were raised to be tough. My dad was and still is to a certain degree a diesel mechanic. So when you fell down, it was like, get up. You're not, you're bleeding, but you're not hurt. Get up, right? When I was playing football, you had to be bleeding from your eyeballs to come out of the game, right? Or the coach would send you back out. And so when I felt the tingle in my hand, it's like, no big deal. I just kind of shook it off, switched the dog over to my right hand, the leash, and just kept on going. Sunday night then, I felt bad. I thought I had acid reflux. I went ahead and just on Monday morning got up, went and got some acid reflux medicine. Still felt bad Monday night. My wife said, you need to call the doctor. So I did. Went to the doctor. And, you do the stupid human test for COVID, right? Do you have a cough? Yes. Are you short of breath? Yes. Oh, you must have COVID. So they made me go and do a drive-up COVID test. That was on Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon late, they called and said, you've passed. Come in Wednesday morning. So when I went in Wednesday morning, the doctor looked at me and said, oh, it must be a false negative, right? You've got COVID. You need to go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital and, they treated me like I had COVID, right? At that point, everybody was wearing hazmat suits in ER, right? And my wife could come in with me, but she had to stay away. The doctors all had the full get up on, right? They said, well, we'll rerun the COVID test and we'll take some other tests. And they came back and said, we don't know about COVID, but you are having a heart attack.
Wow.
And this was Wednesday and I'd first felt it on Sunday night. So who knows how long that went on, right? And where I would have ended up. They put me in. I went through the rigmarole, right? They started doing all the tests. A couple of weeks went by. I was still in the hospital and they said, okay, we think you're stable. We're going to discharge you. Okay, great. The doctor said, we think you ought to go with a life vest. So do you know what a life vest is?
No.
So a life vest is this vest literally that you put on that's got a battery about that big and about that wide and about that tall that sits right here and it's plugged in and it monitors your heart. And there's a metal plate here and a metal plate in the back. And so if your heart has a problem, it starts beeping and like 15 seconds later, then it goes off and it shocks you. And the doctor said, you really need one of these. And I said, all right. So they went and they applied for the insurance. Insurance said, no, it's a monitoring device. Great. So talked to my wife about it. It was $6,000. And we decided, it's worth the $6,000. If something happens, right, it probably will save my life. So we signed up for it, even though the insurance wouldn't pay for it. We left. During this whole thing, I had a detached retina occur in my right eye from all the stress. So they scheduled me out to go get my detached retina fixed on about 4 days later.
Wow.
So we went and we were getting ready to go. We were sitting there watching the Crown of all things. And I blacked out, didn't remember anything. Don't know what happened. My wife said I kicked back on the couch and shoved the couch back about 1.5 feet with her on it, grabbed my chest, and just went straight as a board. The thing started beeping. The life vest went off. I woke up And I'm, hey, Tina, where are you? And she is on the phone with 911. They came out and they took me back. The surgeon took a look at my heart and said, there's nothing I can do here unless we replace the heart, unless you get a new heart transplant. There's nothing I can do with the old one. So then that was on a Thursday. And then on a Sunday, it went off again in the hospital, still had the life vest on. I woke up and, I kind of felt tired. So I laid back. I woke up and the room was full of people, right? They had code blue. They were on my chest pumping and the whole bit. We went through and we continued through the process. And they talked about a VLAD, which is a ventricle life something. It's basically an external pump that pumps for your heart that you can wear. And they talked about that. They decided that I should go through and finish all the tests for the heart transplant. On Wednesday, I don't remember anything from Wednesday on through Saturday morning when I woke up with a new heart. They said I was awake and communicating to them through a, they had like a, what do you call it? The letters up, like a little board with all the letters up, and I was spelling things out for them. And they put me on an ECMO machine, which is a heart-lung machine. Yeah, and I woke up on Saturday morning with a new heart. Didn't remember anything. It's kind of scary. You wake up right from surgery, and they've got the sheet over your face. I thought I was dead.
Oh my God.
Because you're strapped down. I should describe it. You're strapped down, legs and arms.
This is like somebody's worst nightmare. Strapped down, a sheet over your head. Like, people all around you. It's like you're watching your own death in some way. It's just a weird description, Chris. But first of all, how long from the point you had the initial symptoms to getting the transplant and recovering? What is that period of time?
To just get from the time I had the symptoms until the time I got the heart was about 4.5 weeks. Then I was actually on the heart transplant list. They put me on there, somewhere around 2 weeks before they actually did the transplant. And over the last 2 days, on Wednesday and Thursday, when I started degrading so bad that I don't remember any of it.
Yeah.
Once they changed it, they changed my status. It bumped me up to the top of the list, and I got a heart within 1 hour of getting bumped to the top of the list.
No way.
Wow.
It took them about 24 hours, I guess, to go and harvest the heart. The donor was, when they do that, the heart's the last thing they take, right? They take your eyes and your kidneys and all the things that they can use, and the heart's the last thing. So it took them about 24 hours, and they did the surgery. It took them about, according to my wife, it took them about 7 hours to do the transplant.
So, Chris, I got to ask, over the course of those 4 weeks, when you're in and out of consciousness, in and out of the hospital, and in and out of conversations, what are you thinking about, with regards to life and what you've done and what you haven't done? And tell me about that.
You're scared, right? I mean, there's all these things that you want to do in your life that you haven't done. And all these things you want to say to people that you haven't said. And for me, it was scary because, COVID was going on. I could talk to my kids on the phone, but that was the extent of it.
Yeah.
The only one that could come into the hospital was my wife. So, I thought that was it. I thought I was done. I used a lady by the name of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, created this chart basically of the stages of grief that you go through.
Yeah.
And I had just done an embracing change class for some people that were transitioning from, an old way of doing software development to a new way of doing software development. So I used that model to keep track of where I was. And then by just understanding that model and understanding, okay, I'm in denial right now, right? And thinking about that, where I was in relation to that model helped get me through it.
Yeah.
Some people swear off and other people will say, you've got to double check the doctors. I'm a guy that goes into corporations or used to go into corporations and try to help them. And I can't tell you the number of times people said to me, you don't know what you're talking about, right? You don't understand us. We're different. And I refused to do that. I was at IU Methodist in Indianapolis, right? And it's one of the first places in the country that did a heart transplant that was a public hospital, right? And so you've got these experts, these people that understand what they're doing. So why in the world would I think, oh, I'm not going to do that?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to go to physical therapy like they suggested to me. Why would you do that? You've got experts, people that their job is to keep you alive. Why would you doubt them? And so I just did whatever the doctors told me to do, whatever that was. And it wasn't always exciting. Sometimes I didn't agree with it, but shut up and just do it. Right. And that's what's got me through everything that I've been through.
Yeah, I imagine under extreme scenarios like that, there's probably almost no time to even consider second opinions or other methods and things like that. It's do or die.
Yeah.
So if for 4 weeks you're thinking about what you wish you would have said and things you wish you would have done, and then you're in the recovery phase after you have the heart transplant, and I don't know what the data shows in terms of probability of success for a heart transplant. I mean, that's one of your most vital organs. Maybe they've shared that with you and you're one of the success stories. But leading up to that point, you said you traveled the world 4 times, 1 year of work. You're in the software industry. You're in increasingly more senior roles. Was it job stress? Were there lifestyle elements? I think maybe before the show started, you talked a little bit about family history things. What were looking back, are there things that you can point to, not with absolute certainty, but some level of confidence that, if I had done things a little bit different, maybe I wouldn't have been in this circumstance?
Yeah, I think knowing my family history would have helped a lot. On my mom's side, they had a history of heart attacks, and evidently, from what I've learned, it's passed on the female side. So it went from my grandmother to my mom to me. When I had my little episode, everybody in my family got checked out right away. Things I would have done differently, I would have taken more time to be, maybe a little less focused on work and a little bit more focused on family and on friends. I always had the attitude that if I work hard, the company will take care of me. We all know that doesn't necessarily apply anymore. I would have embraced that sooner. I think I would have exercised more, probably eaten a little better, all the standard things you can think of, right?
Thank you for sharing that, Chris.
Sure.
So, Chris, you talk about, when you're going through those 4 weeks that you had some denial and then some regret and people that you wanted to reach out to and things you wanted to do. Now that you are waking up on the table with a new heart and a new lease on life, what does that look like? I have some feelings, but I want to hear it from you in regards to where do you start and what's the first thing you do? And do you create a list and just go through that list? And how does that process start on the new day one?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing I focused on was getting myself back up and on my feet. And so I got discharged on a Tuesday, and on a Wednesday, they had me in physical therapy. So the physical therapy I undertook was a place called the Center of Life Therapeutic Therapy. It's called COLT, right? And it is one where you go, and they had me up and walking around a track immediately upon discharge, and I would walk for 30 minutes. Then I would go and ride a bike for 30 minutes, and then they would do physical therapy, and it was 5 days a week. And that's all I could focus on, right? And then I got, again, COVID. Nobody can come see me. I'm on immune depressant drugs to prevent the rejection of the heart. So, everybody I talk to is either on the computer, right, through Zoom or some, messenger or something like that, or it's them standing out, on the sidewalk and me standing up on the porch and talking to them, right, or on the phone. And so I was really trying to focus on that. We My wife and I didn't go anywhere but to the hospital to do the therapy. That was and my appointments. That was it. We didn't go anyplace else because COVID was rampant.
Yep.
And I knew that if I got out and got COVID, I was probably done. So we stayed at home. So I spent my time trying to get myself physically ready. My daughter got engaged in 2021 and decided she's going to have a destination wedding in Florida in 2022. So in July of all things, and I know y'all probably know what Florida is like in July, right?
Yeah.
It was something else. So my focus then was doing that, right? Getting back to getting to the point where I could walk her down the aisle, getting to the point where I could get back to work, rather than just sitting around watching Netflix all day and then going to exercise and coming out. I wanted to do something else. And so I started focusing on that. I started talking to my friends more. I started valuing my relationships more. Some people would have a religious moment, right? I didn't have that. For whatever reason, I still haven't had that. I am very much focused, though, on my family and on my friends and, just trying to celebrate life. Saying that, I have had some detours, right? I mean, my wife has reminded me that, you shouldn't be working 50 hours a week.
Yeah.
So, and we've had to fight that, right? You can't erase 40 years of history.
Yeah.
In 4 weeks, and so I'm working on that, right? I know I've got some flaws and some things I got to do, but I am working on it. And I've decided I'm going to get back to, right? So right now I'm working full time. I'm still part of the Agile Meridian company that I helped create. I'm working on a contract with a place called Blazing Academy. For lack of a better term, it's a boot camp, right? It's a software development, cybersecurity boot camp. We're transitioning into a different mode, right? Where we're starting to work with high school students and with middle schoolers, teaching them AI, teaching them marketing, teaching them cybersecurity. And so that's kind of what my passion has shifted into is, helping build that curriculum out and then working with the kids, and been very, very fulfilling.
Very cool. Chris, you mentioned you're more thoughtful about how you spend your time working and who you spend your time with. And while you didn't have that sort of religious epiphany, is there something that after you had gone through the heart transplant and the therapy to recover that you've done an instant 180 on? Something that you were doing before and now you, almost because of that event, you did an instant 180 and you haven't looked back.
Diet, for one.
Okay.
Right? Would be one thing. I've changed what I eat. My wife has always been a vegetarian, for about the last 12, 13 years. And so watching what I eat has been a big thing. I enjoy food. I love ice cream. I love steaks. I don't have steaks anymore. I still have ice cream once in a while. You have to do away with salt. We've also done a 180 on the materialistic approach to life that we had before, right? We lived in downtown Indianapolis in I say a little, but it was a 2-bedroom house right near the party district. We've moved, and we've moved in next to my mother-in-law, right? Got on 1 story, downsized. I've downsized my career as well, right? I'm trying to do less big things and more small things, more things that give back.
I love that.
Chris, I think I'm starting to get an idea of that second lease on life and how you're going about the changes that you need to just to extend this new life that you've been given. But I can also imagine, because I've come back from deployments with a changed vision of who I'm going to become. And I've actually talked to a prisoner who got out of jail, and he's filled with the new excitement about the life he's going to live. And then here you are with a new heart and ready to go. But the things around us haven't changed. Our friends haven't changed. The excitement that they have maybe it's the same thing that they've been going through. So they don't necessarily convey the same sentiments or the same excitement that you might have. Was it difficult coming out of that surgery and starting on this new life and conveying this excitement that you have and this change that you have with them and not getting the feedback that you would have liked to have received?
I have a pretty close knit group. There's like 4 couples that have been friends for 40 years. And so they've all been very, very supportive. So I didn't really experience that. They've all been right there. They called when I was in the hospital. We get
Awesome.
together on a regular basis. I really haven't had that.
Okay.
They've been very supportive. My family's been very supportive as well. My mom and dad and my 2 brothers and their families have been very supportive. People are more accommodating. Our family get-togethers were always alcohol, right? There was always beer and there were drinks and wine and, they still do that. I've given up alcohol, right? Which I guess that's another one of those things that I've swapped, right? I think I've had 1 beer in the last 5 years, and it was at my daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
But I've been really lucky in the support network that I've had, in terms of people enabling me. The guy I'm currently working with at 1150 or Blazing Academy, and my partners at Agile Meridian all were very supportive throughout this whole process with me. They even today, they still all will reach out and say, "Hey, wait a minute, you're working too hard. Why are you on this call? What I saw this email from you at 9:00 at night. What are you doing?" And so they're very supportive and very understanding.
Good.
And, I'm not going to even remotely say it's anything like being in the military, right? And the things that you've done. But I do have a little bit of a shell shock at times, right? It's like, what's going on? I couldn't sleep when I got out, right? When I got discharged, I had dreams. I still to this day am waiting for the other shoe to drop, right?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for somebody to say to me, your heart's not working right and you're going to have to do something different. It's a different lifestyle. It's a different approach.
I would imagine it's made you more mindful and appreciative of each and every day that goes by and being able to live that, Chris, and probably living that way now with your close-knit group of friends who are very supportive. Your life event is likely influencing their own behaviors in ways that they're thinking about life going forward. And I guess what is, looking back and where we are today, what is the thing looking back that was the dumbest thing that you obsessed over that now is like totally meaningless to you?
It's a great question.
I would have to say my career. I mean, what are they going to write on my tombstone? Right? Are they going to say he was a great dad, brother, and husband, or is it going to say he worked hard?
Right.
And, I was raised to work hard, and that was kind of the way it was, and that's kind of what you did even when you got in trouble.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, I should have done a lot less of that and should have focused more on investing in family and in my friends and in my kids, for sure. As I mentioned in the pre-show discussion we had, right? I'm in England right now visiting my granddaughter and taking a couple of weeks off work to do that. We're going to see him again in November. We're going to see him again in March on her birthday. So, constant trips back and forth to the UK. Spending time with my kids playing Imperial Assault, right? We've done that. It's just, you just can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
You just can't get enough.
Hearing your story and I'm thinking about the book, Man's Search for Meaning, I know having purpose in life is one way to extend the longevity of your life and get you through really tough times. And it sounds like you're doing exactly that around the things that matter to you most now, your family and your friends and these life events with folks outside of work.
Yeah.
So that's, it's really awesome to hear.
I think it's also important to find a purpose in work. And, that's, I can't say enough about how fulfilling it has been to work. The last 2 summers, I've been working with these 6th to 8th graders in STEM programming, right? And it's in
Nice.
an under-resourced area. It's one of the worst zip codes in Indianapolis, but it's it's very rewarding when you give a kid a VR headset and say, "Here, go play," right? And they've seen VR headsets, maybe they've tried one, but nobody said, "Here, just take it and go play." For me, that's my passion right now, is how do I help?
Yep.
Not only, we can help the kids that are from the affluent neighborhoods, but, for me, it's really about how do we help those that are underprivileged, right? Under-resourced, that, need a boost. They need somebody to say, okay, you can do this, and then get the heck out of the way and let them go do it.
Yeah, that comment, John and I just recorded with a guest who was a former Google executive. She's with the company for 18 years, and she attributes some of her success to her childhood, where she heard from her parents when she was tasked with tough things, tough work assignments, homework assignments, or whatever they were, that they believed in her, that they believed she could do something hard. And it's amazing hearing those words from someone in an authoritative type of position, that the confidence that builds in them to be able to do something great. And in some of those childhood environments that you're describing, maybe they don't hear it enough. And hearing that from you and seeing the possibilities is that thing that gets them over the hump to be able to do great things in life.
Yeah.
Working with these 6th and 8th graders, one of the things we did was I taught them how to create images with DALL-E and ChatGPT, and they actually created posters on how to stop gun violence for a contest the local Marion County Board of Health was having. And it's amazing when you hear these kids and you give them the tool and they create something, and then they stand up and they're describing what they did and why they did it. And you hear them say, my brother was shot, or my dad was killed, or my uncle was killed, right? I mean, and giving back in that way, I think, is something, I think it gets demonized, right? A lot of people say, a lot of kids just don't want to do it. They just don't want to step up. They don't want to study. It's their parents' fault. But actually understanding and having empathy on what those kids have been through, and then trying to give them an opportunity to go forward, at least a path forward, is just something that we don't do enough of. And that's when we talk about, the second chance, it's not only with the family and the friends. If it were just the family and friends, and interacting with them and changing my life, that's one way. But it's my duty, with the responsibility that's been given to me by getting a second chance, that I need to go and give back to those that can't. And, I'm constantly looking for how I can do that. Sometimes we got to do the good thing for the rich kids, right? Or the kids that don't have it so tough, so that we can do some things for the under-resourced.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to figure out.
Chris, I love what you're saying. And it reminds me of an exercise that I've done. I think Michael has done it too, where you write your obituary, and you write it as if you were to die today and you couldn't change anything, and no one was gonna, boost up your life or make it sound cooler than it actually was. They're gonna read it as if they're reading a fact sheet. And the thing that gets me about your experience is, when I wrote my obituary, I focused on, if I were to come back, what I would do differently, how I would spend more time with my family and my wife, and how I would make that time more valuable than I have been over the last 44 years of my life. But you're taking it one step further, and you're saying, not only will I give back to my family and my friends, but I'm going to reach out to the greater community. And that, to me, speaks to who you are, and the life, the second act that you're living now is so much greater, I think, than the first, because you're so focused on giving back. And I know that that's going to impact some people and change their life radically, in ways that you might not ever have that chance if you hadn't had this experience. So I just want to commend you on that, but also just, remember how I wrote my obituary and think, wow, I really was selfish in my time. If I came back, I need to expand that out to the community that I live in.
Yeah, I think it's important. Not everybody understands, right? Not everybody always understands why I am doing what I'm doing, and not everybody agrees, but it's what I feel like I have to do to try to give back. I mean, for whatever reason, somebody decided I deserved a second chance, and we've got to make the most of it.
Yep.
Right. And I have looked up, by the way, Michael, you mentioned you don't know if I've looked up the odds. I know what the odds are. I'm a software guy, right? I've Googled the thing. I know that something like 75% of the people make it to 5 years, right? And that once you make it to 5 years, you're pretty much, you're pretty good. I know I've got some time left, right? I mean, I know I am doing fantastic. They've weaned me off all the not all the meds, but down to a very low maintenance level. And so I know I'm very optimistic. I've got time. And so the question is, when you guys were writing your obituaries, you wrote it and you still may or may not have time. I'm pretty sure I got some time left, and I know it's a fixed window, and I'm going to make the best of it. Whatever that means, whatever I can do, I'm going to make the best of it and try to help people as best I can. And maybe they won't write on my tombstone, he worked hard. Maybe they'll write something else there.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of tombstones that probably have something like that on that, unfortunately. And I'm not sure that was the intent when they started life. With that said, Chris, as we start to wind down the show, this is a great segue into our last question that we like to ask our guests. For anybody who does have a new lease on life, or starting something new, or has had some life event, either with themselves or with someone they know, that causes a paradigm shift, and they just are looking to make a change and get started, what is the one piece of practical advice that you would want to leave our audience with to think about as they begin that second act?
Get started. I mean, don't put it off. Just get started. Take a step and reach out. And not only think about your family and your friends, but think about what got you there. One of the areas that I'm starting to reach out and explore is how I become an advocate for the Indiana Donors Network. I learned a couple years later, that's where I got my heart. Think about what your talents are and who you can help the most. And then just get started. Don't put it off. Don't overanalyze it. Get started. You'll find your way. You'll find, and people will. The other thing is, don't go in with a preconceived notion on how you're going to help them, right? Just walk up and say, how can I help? And what do you need me to do? And it may mean you sweep the floor. It may mean that you go on podcasts and talk, but whatever that is, just take that first step.
That's great.
It's that just start. I love so much, Chris, and so many of our other guests, to include Michael and I, we advocate for not collecting all the information, not having the 100% plan, just putting one step in front of the other. And when you are able to look back at the journey and look back at what you've achieved, you'll blow yourself away at what those single steps add up to, and the journey that you will have been on by just taking one step at a time. And I really love what you're doing. I love the lease on life that you have, and putting community first and foremost, and really being an advocate for the people that are around you, because that's truly what I think is the dash on our tombstone between our birth date and the day that we leave Earth, is everything in the middle. All the people that we've helped, all the people that we've been able to impact, all the people whose lives are different, because hopefully something that we've done good in between those two dates, those 2 years. And so I commend you on that. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and taking time to share your story with our audience and give some hope to people who are in the journey on their second act or in their second life that they've been given. And if there's any of those individuals that want to reach out to you and connect or hear more of your story, how could they best do that?
They can get me at cdaily at blazing, BLAIZING.org.
Okay.
I'd be glad to talk to anybody. And I have in the past, right? People call up, hey, my brother needs to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Awesome. Chris, we'll include that. I know you're on LinkedIn as well. We'll include your LinkedIn handle when we share this episode. And I mean, this is a very unique, special episode with, I'm not sure we'll ever talk to another person due to the rarity of what you have gone through, but it sure is inspiring. And the things that you're doing now are just incredible. So thanks again for coming on and sharing with our audience.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the time.
All right. Till next time.
Yeah. We'll see you all later. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
See ya.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballinger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act with Michael and John on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.